Welcome Math 2020 students to the section 1.2 handout explanation video. And so I'm going to explain this video with just taking notes here, this handout with just taking notes, and so you will need to access the 1.2 handout to be able to follow along with what I'm doing. So pause the video, pull up the 1.2 handout from Canvas, and you can follow along. Okay, so with 1.2, we have a quote that we're starting out with. Learning to measure and calculate measurements is an essential first step toward geometry and science. Geometry is the study of relationships among the measurements, like lengths, angles, areas, and volumes of figures. Before students can comfortably work with measurements, they need to practice using measuring tools and solving arithmetic word problems involving lengths and measurements. So that's what we're going to do in this section, is we're going to learn about measuring tools, just to start out with length, okay? And later in the course, we'll use area and volume, but not until the very last part of the course. Length, though, is very fundamental to the beginning of the course. So we're going to go into number 1. It says, have each person in your group choose a different non-standard unit of measure from the following list: handspan, hand, cubit, fathom, and foot. Okay, so if you want to measure with them and they're not exactly whole number units, devise a way to express partial units. So find the lengths of the table, whatever table you're at, using these non-standard units of measure for length. Okay, so since we don't have groups here, you can just try this at home. And first of all, we need to know what some of these things are. That they're kind of older type unit, length unit, standard, non-standard units for us now, but they were back then in whatever point of history that we're talking about. Now the first one is called a handspan. Okay, so if you know what a handspan is, you can go ahead and take a note about what that is. But if you're not sure what the handspan is, you have to open up your hand and then measure the length from the thumb to the pinky. And so I'm going to try and draw an open hand. Okay, we'll pretend this person has an open hand. And the handspan is going to be this distance here. This from the thumb all the way to the edge of the pinky. Okay, that's your handspan. Number 2 is a hand. Okay, a hand is actually still used when you're measuring horses. Okay, and so you have your hand, but keeping everything closed. Okay, and you're thinking about the distance from the thumb to the pinky again. Okay, that's a hand. The next one is called a cubit. So people who are more religious scholars know that cubits were used in the Bible as a long time ago measurement. Okay, but what is a cubit? Well, a cubit is if you bend your arm like this, and you have your hand here. A cubit is the distance from your elbow all the way to the top of your middle finger. Okay, so that's a cubit. So like in the Bible, they give the dimensions of Noah's Ark, for example, in cubits. All right, so that is a cubit. And the next one is called a fathom. And a fathom today is 6 feet, but back in the day, it's actually a little bit different. So we draw a person. That kind of arms. They need to outstretch their arms. And they need to draw in their fingers. Okay. And a fathom is your arm span. Okay. This distance here. Okay. Another is arm span. Okay, that's another word for fathom. And then, of course, the last one is foot. Okay, and your foot is the length of your foot. Okay, so you take your foot length here and draw that. Okay. So these are the non-standard units of measure, and when we are going to measure our table, when we're at, you would need to think about the measuring process. Okay, so number 2 says that children must be taught the measuring process. All right, so what is the measuring process? And I'll go ahead and make these a little bit more understandable because I'm doing number 1. So it's like A, B, C, D, E. Number 2 is a measurement process. Okay, and we're going to discover the measuring process when we measure the table. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video. Measure your table, like between the legs, the whole height, and the table length and width, using these different non-standard units just to practice the measuring process. Okay, and once you get the idea down about how this works, you can go ahead and play the video, and then we'll discuss that. Okay, the measurement process has 3 parts. Okay, the first thing that you needed to do when you were to measure your table was you wanted to choose your unit. Okay, and so children need to be taught this process. It's not something that comes naturally. Okay, so you choose your unit, whether it be a hand, foot, fathom, inch, centimeter, meter, whatever. Okay, the second step is when you are going to measure something, especially with non-standard units, you're going to start from the beginning and you're going to end at the end. Okay, so if you have this thing to measure, so I'm going to go ahead and draw something arbitrary to measure. You have to measure this distance here. Okay. And if you're going to measure it using feet, you have to start at the beginning, which means that you can't just measure your foot right here. Okay, we'll pretend that these are little footprints. Okay, and then stop here and say that that's 4 feet. Okay, you have to start all the way at the beginning, put your first foot here, and end at the end. Okay, so it's not actually 4 feet. It's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 feet. Okay, so 9 feet is a better measurement. Oops. Okay, start at the beginning and then at the end. And then your third one is no gaps or overlaps. Okay. So if I was measuring this one, and I'd say like, put one there, and say, oh, look at all of these feet here. I'm going to line them all up. I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet. Okay, so I said that that's 6 feet. Well, we know that there's some gaps in there. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm going to fill in the gap. So you might want to fill in the gap like this. And there's 7 feet. No, there's 8 here. Let's go here. 9, 10 feet. Okay, so 10 feet. So, and okay, so we have 6 feet with gaps. We know that that's not true because the actual is 9 feet. We have 10 feet with overlaps, which means I'm going to overcount the length with units, and so that's not the actual unit. So we choose our unit, we start at the beginning and then at the end, and we have no gaps or overlaps. That's the measurement process. Okay, so for number 3 on the handout, we are supposed to obtain a meter stick or a tape measure. So what I have here is a picture of a meter stick. And which side is customary, which side is metric? Okay, so this one, it goes up to 39, and the units on here are inches. Okay, so this is going to be the US customary end. We need to find the following lengths on our thing here, our meter stick. And the first one is 16 inches. And so 16 inches is just where the 16 is. I'm going to zoom in here and get to 16 inches here. And so let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here, get the 16 inches about right here. And this distance is 16 inches. Right there, that's 16 inches. Okay, and the next one is going to be 2 feet. Now 2 feet is going to be 1 foot and 1 foot, and each foot is going to be 12 inches. Okay, so we're going to do this one right here. So here's 1 foot here. Another 12 inches gets us to 24 inches. Okay, and so the whole thing here is 2 feet. Okay. What we need is 1 yard and 1/4 inch. Well, 1 yard we know is 3 feet. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do up here. The third foot is going to be right here, from 24 to 36 inches. That's my third foot. And my 3 feet. Okay. So 1 yard is 3 feet. 3 feet is 12 inches each foot. And so we have 36 inches. Now, 1/4 inch. So let's zoom in here. Okay. And what is our 1/4 inch? Well, here, I'm going to erase that a little bit. There you go. 1/4 inch. Let's see what we got here. From 36 to 37, we have 1 inch. Okay, that's 1 inch. And we're going to do 1/4 of that. And so we have right here, this one right here is 1/2 inch. That's 1/2 inch. And then half of the half will give me the 1/4, and that's this one right here. Okay, so this point right here is 1/4 inch past the 1 yard line, 1 yard mark. Okay. Actually, I'm going to do this one in, so we haven't used red yet. Just right here. Okay. And so from this beginning point to this ending point, all the way here, all the way to that ending point is 1 yard and 1/4 inch. Okay. So we have one more to do, and that is 5 3/8 inches. 5 3/8 inches. We're going to go purple, Weber's tape. 5 3/8 inches. So let's go and zoom in here. So here's our 5 inches right here. And we need to get to 3/8 inches. Okay, so from 5 to 6, mark that out there. This one is the 1/2 inch. And this one is the 3/4 inch. So in between 1/2 and 3/4 is going to be 1/8. Okay, so we need 3/8. Okay, 3/8. So we have, here's my 1/4 inch. So we need 3/8. So these ones, little ones, are eighths. So we have 1/8, 2/8, and then 3/8. Okay. So this mark right here is that 3/8 right here. And this mark right here is the beginning. And so this distance right here is 5 3/8 inches. Okay. And there's our use customary side. Going on to the next picture is our metric side. Okay. This is the metric side because we have powers of 10. Okay. We have 1 unit here, the whole unit this way, 1 meter here, and each of these meters are divided into parts of 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, 70, 80, 90, hundreds, okay? So these ones right here are decimeters. Okay. And in that decimeter, we have 10 objects here that are going to be our centimeters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay? And each one of these right here is a centimeter. And in between those, we have really close up, we can see fine lines, and those are our millimeters. So let's go ahead and clear all that out. The first thing that we're looking for is 1 centimeter. Okay, 1 centimeter. So from here to here, to the 1, that's 1 centimeter. The next one is 7 decimeters. Remember that I outlined the decimeters in yellow. Okay, so there's 7 here. So there's, let's use a different color here. 1 decimeter, 2 decimeters, 3 decimeters, 4 decimeters, 5 decimeters, 6 decimeters, and here's the 7th decimeter. Okay, each one of these are 1 decimeter in length. Put 1 decimeter there. Good. So the whole thing here, 7 decimeters. And so we have the next one to be 3.4 decimeters. 3.4. So we need 3 decimeters to here. And 0.4 decimeters is going to be right to here, where the 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So this distance in blue is 3.4 decimeters. Okay. Now we're going to do 54 millimeters. Meters stay purple. So here's the 50 millimeters part. So 5 centimeters equals 50 millimeters. Now I just need 4 more. Now the halfway point is right here, and so it's just right there. Okay. 54 millimeters to that one there. Okay. So here's that video about number 3. Moving on to number 4 for our handout, we have measure the table again in both standard and metric units. Choose appropriate units and measure as accurately as possible. Okay, so that will be measure table with standard units. Okay. Measure it with inches or centimeters, according to the U.S. customary and the metric system there. Length, width, and height. So I'll let you guys do that one. Okay. Now, number 5 is metric system with length. Okay. But even the metric system in general just has the same kind of prefixes for each of their lengths. Okay, so you have the regular unit. Okay, so we're going to start with our regular unit here. And in this case, it could be meters. Okay, start in the middle. Now, there are there is a unit that is 10 times smaller than that meter. Okay, when you get 10 times smaller than a meter, you have a decimeter, deci. Okay, so that's the prefix, and you can have a decimeter. Okay. And the next one that's 10 times smaller is going to be, no, so let's do 10 decimeters equals 1 meter. Okay, so is going to be the centimeter, centi. Okay, centimeter. And there's 10 of those in 1 decimeter. Okay, and then if we go 10 times smaller than that, we get the millimeter. Okay, so there's 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter. Okay. And we're going to go bigger now. So we have our unit gone down there. Okay, so 10 times bigger. The next unit is called a decameter. So deca. Oops, let's put that up here. Didn't quite work. Here we go, we got it there. Okay, so we can have a decameter if we wanted. Okay, and then 10 times bigger than that is the hectometer, hecto. Okay, and then 10 times bigger than that gives us a kilometer. Kilo is 1,000 meters. Okay, so the ones that we'll use mostly are these ones. That there are conversions that there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. That there are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. Okay, I'll use those ones the most. So there are, in the handout they have more prefixes, but the ones that we are using more here are just the regular ones. Now to remember all of this stuff here, the kilo and the hecto and the deca and the unit and the deci and the centi and the milli, we use mnemonics. Okay, so something fun to remember. King Henry died drinking chocolate milk. Okay, and so that's the mnemonic to use. And so once we have these metric units, we need to convert among them. Okay, and so I'm going to do number 6 now, conversions. Okay, and there's some that are in the 6 and 7 here. We'll do conversions. Actually, yeah, 6 is more like up here with these things here, and then number 7 is the conversions. Okay. So I'm going to just make up a couple examples and have you look at them and see how I do conversions. This will be similar to things that we will do in the future of the course, so it's good to have this down now. Let's say that I have, we'll start with the U.S. customary, and we'll do a conversion there. Let's say they have, let's see, 15 inches. Okay, I want to convert that to feet. Oops. Okay, so I start out with 15 inches, and I put over 1. And I create a chain, or just one conversion factor, okay? And I multiply it to my 15 inches over 1, so I can change the inches into feet. Now the conversion factor is based off of these equations here. Okay, and we know that we want to go from inches to feet, but we know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Now when we're multiplying fractions, we're going to have to put the 12 inches down here in the denominator, and we will cancel so that they can cancel at diagonals. We know that there's 1 foot for every 12 inches, and so this is a form of 1. Okay, for every 1 foot there's 12 inches. They're the same thing, and that's why we can multiply it and not change our value. But we will be able to cross cancel, okay? And when we get done with that, we multiply the numerators and denominators, 15 over 12 feet. Okay, we can simplify that to 1 and 3/12 feet, which is equal to 1 and 1/4 foot. Okay, and so that's how conversions work in general. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do one with, let's go with feet and yards. Okay, so we have 3 yards is equal to how many feet? Okay. So we have 3 yards equals blank feet. So we'll start with my 3 yards, put over 1, multiply it by however many yards in the denominator and feet in the numerator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that there's 1 yard and for every 3 feet. Okay. That will cancel here, and 3 times 3 feet is equal to 9 feet. Okay. So let's do another conversion, part C, with metric. Okay, so we go up to our mnemonic, and let's say that we don't remember. Okay, well, I'm going to go with, let's write a problem first. We're going to write, let's see, 305 centimeters. We convert that to meters. Okay, so I'm starting with centimeters here. My decimal for the 5 is here, so my centimeters is here, and I want to get to meters. Okay, remember meters is here, and we go 1, 2, and we're at meters for the ones place. Okay, so we're going to go move our decimal 2 units to the left. Okay, so we can do 3.05 meters. Okay, moving it 2 units to the left. So that's a shortcut way for doing metric conversions. Now notice how easy that is. But let's say that we wanted to do it a different way using conversion factors. So we write down our quantity, 305 centimeters, divide by 1. We multiply it by how many centimeters are in a meter. We know that there's 100 centimeters for 1 meter. Cancel at diagonals, and we have 305 divided by 100 meters. And so we move the decimal over to the left 2 spots for division by 100, and again we get 3.05 meters. Okay. So those are a little bit introduction on conversions, and you can use conversions with the worksheet handout and in the homework if you need. Sometimes if you want to do it in your head, that's fine with me. So just do it wherever you can to get the right answer. Okay. So please feel free to email me with questions. That's our lesson for today.